when you hear someone laughing at you, it really like gets you. Like it's really bad. It doesn't feel good.
Max Ahumada. He's the founder of Heroic English, and we are going to learn a lot about him. He's not a native speaker, English speaker, and that's awesome, especially for us because we want to improve our English, and we know that when we study or when we practice with someone that it's not speaker, it's not native speakers, that person can help us to improve better because he already struggled with our same struggles. So welcome, Max.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda. And you're right, I'm not a native English speaker, and I love that that's true because, as you said, I'm in a unique position to help others to learn and develop their fluency in English because I know what they are going through. I've been there, done that, and yeah, I just have a different kind of connection with the language and a different perspective that I would suppose many natives lack. Um, Thank you for
Yeah.
having me again. It's great to be here.
So we are going to start first with your story. I would like to know so when you start and why you start learning English. So a little bit of your background.
Yeah, actually, in the last Heroic English meetup, and you alluded to it, this is a group where we meet to discuss profound topics while we practice our English. We like to talk about personal development, mindset development. And in our last meeting, we talked about that. And one of the things that we discussed is that, like, the initial spark, it's not always something that is like very meaningful. Like, what was that one thing that made that kind of like, well, sparked this desire to learn English and to aspire to become someone that can speak the language fluently and confidently? For me, it was the very mundane, meaningless, if you will, necessity to understand the lyrics of the music that I was listening to. So that is what got me started
Okay.
and kind of like the first thing. And then that developed and evolved into more meaningful, more, I don't know, long lasting things that I wanted to, continue improving. But basically, to answer your question in short, wanting to understand the lyrics of the music I was listening to.
Can I
That
ask
was what,
you, how
yeah.
old were you at that point when you start
I
just listening music?
I was 19 years old. Now I am 33. So it's
Okay.
been 14 years back in 2009.
And how was in your school? So did you take classes at school?
I did, but actually I did not like English when I was going through high school, actually. I did not do well at English. I
Okay.
I even would cheat to pass the exams. It's funny because I have a picture. I don't know why I took a picture of my hand with some kind of like a cheat sheet on my hand with a conjugation of verbs.
Okay.
And I have and still have that picture. And it's so like, wow, it's like it's another life. It's been like, I don't know, maybe like a decade and a half that I took that picture. And I've just become a different person. It's crazy.
It's fun. It's fun because when I started at school, um, I remember the only thing, and I cannot say the only, probably I learned more, but in reality, I couldn't speak. If I couldn't speak, I thought like I didn't learn. Yes. And the thing that I learned at school, suppose, was the to be verb. Okay. Because every time that you start the class, it was to be verb. And something fun was that then when I start speaking, I start making or having the same mistakes, making the same mistakes about the to be verb in with he or with she, that I always forget the S. And I said, but that was the thrill that I have in class. So yeah, that's crazy. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I can relate to that
Mm,
too. Yeah, the verb to
it's
be,
incredible.
like, for like I just try to put myself like back when I was like, I didn't really understand what English, like how it worked, basically the mechanics of language. And I had this idea, oh, the infamous verb to be. They're always talking about it. I don't comprehend it. I don't know what that is, but it's just
Yeah, it's
that's all.
sad.
But that's all that they talk about, teachers. Yeah.
That's yes, that's sad because at the end you cannot practice with that. So yeah, but it is what it is. What kind of music did you like at that point?
Yeah, good question. I was really passionate about rap music. Yeah.
Wow, and that was very fast.
Yeah, it had that added element of like rapping is kind of like fast paced. Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
Um, it's kind of funny because, my first kind of like exploration of the language was through learning the meaning of, the words being used in raps. And I was learning like all kinds of slang words, like,
Bad words.
yeah. And, someone that just starting to kind of like understand the basics of the language, having kind of like this unproportionate understanding of slang, it just didn't make sense. But yeah, I like after a while I started to kind of like get a more general understanding of the language, and I started to compartmentalize my vocabulary, like, okay, this is slang, I'm not supposed to be using these words like in all situations. So I started to kind of like understand formal and informal language, slang, things like that.
But that's fun, something fun. So when you move, I live in the United States, and some people said like they learn more English at the streets. Why? Because they do the same thing that you do, conversation. So you just promote conversation, something that I love, and they start learning with that idioms, with that kind of, because that's common things that they can just speak. So I love that. I think that that's a really good way to start learning also. Wow. Yeah, I like that. Wow, that's great. Okay. So your passion starts with that. And then what happened? Then you went to Lima? That was at that point, or that was after that you went to Peru, that you have an
Yeah.
exchange?
Yeah, I did go on an exchange program to the south of Peru, actually, but that was kind of like a different part of my journey. That was after a few years, actually, back in 2013. By that time, I had already managed to remember I mentioned my spark in English. Now,
Yes.
after that spark, after that initial motivation, you need to sustain that your learning, basically. Otherwise, it's just going to be a spark, and it's just another thing that you at some point started learning, but then you've just abandoned. Like, we've all had so many of those things, right? So I was able
Yes.
to sustain it, and the way that I did that is I was involved in different groups. Like, for example, I went to school. I said, okay, what's a career path that I can go through so that I can actually use my English professionally? And so I did not like teaching. There was this other option, which was translation. So that's kind of like what I set my sight on, translation. And I joined I went to school, a university, and the university had this exchange program agreement with a university in the south of Peru. So I went to Peru, and that was kind of like when I experienced really living my English, but in a more advanced level. Because all the years before that, I really made it a point to really live my English. Like, it's not just something that I'm learning, it's something that I am living every day. And I am making that a part of who I am and everything. But when I went to Peru, I made so many international friends there. And we used English as the main medium of communication, right? So yeah, I went to Peru, and it was a huge experience and a super transformative experience for me.
Okay, I have here two questions. The first one is the exchange. It's English exchange. Yes, it was English exchange. or no?
Well, I mean, the exchange was, I mean, I was studying translation, and at that point, I was also studying teaching. Like, I was being trained to become an English teacher as well. I had kind of like, teaching had grown on me a little bit by then. And I went to this university in Peru to, study a few subjects on teaching English. So, I mean,
And
it
why
was,
Peru? It's because when I think English, usually I don't think in a country that is a Spanish country. So
yeah.
why Peru?
Yeah, you usually like hear about people going to like the UK or the US.
Yes.
This was just an exchange program, like between like the departments of English of both schools, basically. So
Okay.
that was I think it's kind of like an agreement between like some countries in South America, Chile, Paraguay,
Oh,
and Peru and
okay. That's
Argentina.
great.
So
I didn't know
those were
about
the
that.
options.
Okay.
People think that, if you want to practice your English, okay, where are you going to go? Okay, go to Australia, to the
Yeah.
UK, to the US.
Yeah.
But you can also go to Chile, to Peru, to Colombia, Ecuador. I mean,
Wow.
it's a whole new experience for you going to these different countries. And when you are in those countries, I mean, ideally, if you are on the right mindset, you say, okay, let's just embrace any new adventure or opportunity that presents itself. And many times that is connecting with people that are also like temporarily staying in those countries.
Yeah.
And that's when you can connect with them, right? Or you should probably, like, I had a bias towards, okay, wanting to connect with people that are from, I don't know, different places than Argentina. From Peru itself, of course, I was
Yes.
in that country, but also met friends from the US, from Brazil, from Europe, Belgium, like friends.
Yeah.
And I
And
had
you
this,
keep that friends. Wow. That's
I
amazing.
I do, yeah, I do. And yeah, I still keep
That's
in touch with a
amazing
few of
because
them.
that's the way that you can keep learning, you have another motivation because you want to talk more. And okay, but the second question was, so when you start the university, so at that point your English was good?
Well, not in my first attempt, actually, because I started, well, I mean, in 2009, when I got this spark to wanting to learn English, I was studying law. I was being trained to be a lawyer, just following on my mom's steps. She is a lawyer too.
Okay.
And then one day, go to my mom and I tell her, Mom, I'm not sure I want to be a lawyer. I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm learning at school, but I also have this spark with English. What can I do? I mean, how about I start English next year? But she did not really like the idea so much in the beginning.
Of course.
But I did that the year after in 2010, and I
Yeah.
went to this kind of like one of the most important universities in Argentina, and everyone there had an amazing level of English, and I felt I was incompetent in the language. And we're talking about 2010. Um, the year before, okay, I had been kind of like learning words that I encounter in rap songs,
Yeah.
but that didn't really get me anywhere. Like, I was still missing all the structure of the grammar, of the mechanics of the language, not to mention the pronunciation.
Mm.
Even like, I have some videos from back then, and it's just really funny.
That's
Um,
nice. That's nice to watch that.
yeah, maybe one day I'll share that in my YouTube channel, like
You should.
when it makes sense to show that, or to kind of like show my transformation. So well, that was me in 2010, and because like I felt the pressure was too much, and I wasn't really, I felt like my self-belief was through the floor, really. I just kept comparing myself with all these people. Many of them had lived in other countries. Many of them were where I was, say, in 2016, for example, when I was already so much more experienced. And I ended up quitting. I mean, I could not do it. However, I did not really quit for good, and I knew that, okay, let's just I'm gonna stop here. Let me just go back to the drawing board and let me reassess the situation. I'm gonna take off the rest of the year. I'm not gonna be going to school. But I did actually I did keep practicing. At the time, I thought that I really needed to learn grammar. That was my belief system back in those days. I started reading Spanish grammar. I thought that it's not that I believe that now, but I thought like back then that in order for me to understand English, first I needed to understand Spanish very well. So I did that. I picked up a book about Spanish grammar, learned about it, got really fluent in it. I understood like all the concepts very well. I kind of like mastered, as a native Spanish speaker, of course, I understand and I can use Spanish grammar, but I got really a great understanding of how to explain Spanish grammar. And that actually did help when I
Of
started to
course.
learn more like English, more
Absolutely.
like with a focus on grammar and of course on all these other areas. So in 2011, I started university again, this time in my local, the university here in my area.
Mhm.
And I was head and shoulders above everyone else. And I did really well all through the
And
years
probably
that I was.
because,
Yeah.
sorry, because that at that point you felt passion. So it was passion. It was something inside of you. It was not you were looking outside to come here. It was looking from here to outside. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, and that's the
Absolutely.
goal.
That is the differentiating factor. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But you are talking about the difficulties. So the limited beliefs. And so do you think that was so it's like I feel that when you have a pathway are some batches, some steps that you try to don't go up. Like
Mm-hmm.
you feel, okay, no, I'm not going there. So it's something. And I feel like all the students, everybody is the same. So
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes, even if our English is good, we believe like, no, everybody's better than us. So we are scared to talk. So what were that kind of limited beliefs that you have, limiting beliefs that you had at that point?
Yeah. Well, I just felt that, I wasn't good enough and that if I spoke, people would laugh at me or think that I am not very intelligent, things like that. And actually, that did happen. Like, I had people actually laugh at my pronunciation. And when you are in that place of very like limiting beliefs, when you hear someone laughing at you, it really like gets you. Like, it's really bad. It doesn't feel good, right? So
And how to
yeah,
overcome that kind of beliefs?
yeah. I guess like everyone has their own kind of like journey and way that they end up overcoming that. In that moment, it's very important to remain resilient and keep pushing forward. Just had a bad day, had a bad moment, but guess what? That's what life is all about. Like, you're gonna have bad moments. You're gonna feel you're not gonna. It's not always everything's gonna be like good and all roses, and you're gonna have bad moments, and that's just part of the experience. And
Max, yes. And how do you think you can keep going? So, because I see many people that they just quit. They just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time," and they just quit. So, what do you think? What will be your advice? So, to tell them, no, you cannot quit. What tools do you think they can use to do that, to keep
mhm.
going?
I don't really believe that you can convince someone of not quitting because like on my own experience, whenever I felt I was close to quitting, it's like you get to a point of no return. Like no matter what people tell me, if I'm already kind of like in that mindset, I'm going to end up quitting anyway. And I don't see quitting as a bad thing. I mean, you have to do what you feel it's connected with what you want to do, what you desire to become. For some people, that's not English. For some people, it is something else, and that's okay, right? But in my case, I didn't quit because English was connected with like a bigger purpose, a bigger sense of why, you know? I talked about the spark, sustaining your learning, and then amplifying your kind of like learning, right? When you amplify it, you connect it with a bigger purpose. And for me, but by let's say 2010, when I was going through these bad moments, English been had already become a part of who I was and who I wanted to become. So it was going to be very hard for me to really want to quit English altogether. So I did quit it, but I know that I was okay. This is just going to be like a hiatus between now and sometime next year where I'm really going to try again. And for me, that was very healthy, actually, to quit, to forget about it for a few months. But in the back of my mind, I knew, okay, I'm just taking a break, I'm not going to quit this altogether. I'm going to come back and I'm going to come back strong. That's what I did, actually. And yeah, that
I
helped
love
me
that. Yes.
immensely. Yeah.
I love that. And it's fun because so I believe like it's not like come back. I differ a little bit about that. It's not come back. It's just I'm not going to go back. So I'm just here and start pushing a little bit more. And something that I believe like it's a tool, and I suggest for people that they think like no, they are old, they are not smart, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the they cannot talk to anybody because they live in an environment that they don't speak English. I really believe, and I like your program for that reason, because proximity is very important. So when you are surrounded by people that has the same goal, that want to practice English, that want to improve their lives, so that's powerful.
And you've just hit on a point that I've become lately very passionate about, and that is the power of community, the power of being in proximity with other people
Yes,
that can
I
inspire
saw
you.
that.
Can I ask you a question, kind of
Of
like a thought
course.
experiment?
Yeah,
Because
of course.
I've started to use this to kind of like, prove my point. Say, like, mention any sport that comes to mind. Any sport, any sport will do it.
Swimming.
Swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is a country that does particularly well at swimming in the Olympics, for example?
Japan.
Japan, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Are you sure Japan is one of those?
I don't know. So I'm just that comes into my head.
I'm thinking about Michael Phelps. He's
Okay.
from the United States, right?
I don't
I'm
know.
because I'm not sure. Like if you told me like, okay, Jamaica, what do they do well? They're good at the 100 meter dash.
Okay.
So even if that's the example, or let's say America, the United States, and swimming, why do like American swimmers perform better in the Olympics? Well, because they have a supportive environment around that sport, right? In the United States, they have all these kind of like high school, college programs where they do an extracurricular activity. A lot of them pick up swimming, a lot of them pick
Yes.
up
Yeah.
wrestling, a lot of them pick up basketball. So they have this very supportive environment that really encourages them and empowers them to really climb through the rankings and become world class at what they do. Messi would have never become Messi had he been born in the United States. And Michael Jordan would have never become Michael Jordan had he been born in Argentina, Chile, Colombia. Even though we have good basketball in Argentina, like there's no Michael Jordan is coming out of Argentina, that's for sure. So it's this supportive environment. Now, do you as an English learner have a supportive and empowering environment around you? Like a lot of people, love to talk about, oh, I learned this language on my own. I did it alone. I did it without help. And I think that is largely a myth. And even those people that say that, they did not really do it on their own. They connected with people that helped them, that even peers that encouraged them. And when I think about what I did in my learning journey, I connected with a few different groups along my journey that really took me to the next level, helped me take me to the next
Yes.
level, really. At some point, that was my school I was going to.
Yes.
Then it was this other community. Then when I was in Peru, I was part of a group. And now what I want to do, and you brought up Heroic English, is exactly that. I want to create a community and an environment that can help people, that can empower them to really become that person that they are aspiring to become. And it's all about aspiration. And it's all about changing, not changing, but kind of like
You're
adopting a new
supporting.
identity. Yeah,
Yes,
and,
you're
and a new
supporting the
identity.
environment. Yes, so they can move on. They can practice.
Definitely.
So that's the next question. So now I want to transfer the conversation to Heroic English. So tell us a little bit. So why you start that and how it works.
Heroic English, like the concept, I don't know really how I landed on it, but so first I started my YouTube channel as something that I wanted to, just start, putting myself out there, teaching and connecting with people and helping other people. Like it's all part of the journey for me. I feel that I've already gotten to a point where I can feel proud of what I can do with English. It's not like I'm done yet. Like I still have a lot to learn. My English still needs to get better for some things. And as I was doing, as I was working on my YouTube channel, like creating videos, the name of my YouTube channel is I'm Max and I'll teach you English. I wanted to create something that would get me closer to other people that are probably like where I was at a few years ago. And I'm into personal development, mindset development, and I've always been a fan of conversation groups. I've led a few conversation groups that have done wonders for my English and my development. And so I thought that I am well positioned to start something similar. So what if I combine the need to practice your English, and then what are we going to talk about? I thought, okay, let's do mindset development. So I've designed a few, say, conversation plans where we talk about confidence, habits, growth mindset, flow, being in the state of flow, being in the zone, then learning. We talk about happiness and grit, core values. So so far I have 9 conversation plans developed, and a 10th one is kind of like a wild card, like anything will do here. Like we do a different style of meeting, but it's still, we talk about these profound topics, because I wanted to create a place where we could have fun and profound conversations. But I also, like within Heroic English, I have what I call English happy hour, where we talk about fun and relaxed topics. So again, fun and profound topics, Heroic English, fun and relaxed topics, English happy hour, where we talk about like, more relaxed have a more relaxed conversation, really.
And that's nice because that's life. Life is about
Exactly.
both. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Exactly. That is exactly how I view it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was in one of your classes and I love it. So and the interaction to see people from different parts of the world, that's also enrich the conversation because you have something to learn. Sometimes I don't know if that happened to you, that that we have many countries, but then they start speaking and you said, oh my goodness, that person, so that culture exists. So the world is big. So it's incredible the
Absolutely.
connection that you can do. So that's awesome. Yeah, I love the program. And the goal is to help them to improve their conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of like the most immediate ideal, is that, okay, they have a place where they can put their English, the spoken English, into practice. But also there is a lot more to that, like just being part of that community. That is the whole purpose of it. Just being part of something that's bigger than yourself, and that really allows you and helps you and empowers you to continue learning and to really becoming the next level you. So in a community, you're going to find peers, and you're going to also find mentors. A lot of people see me as a mentor, and there's, they learn a lot and they ask me questions, and they reach out to me, and I'm always very open and kind of like reachable. And then they also have the peers, and peers are actually, I don't know, I want to say more important than mentors in a way, because they are really the ones that teach you English, not like directly teaching you English, but you, just by being in, like interacting with them, you're going to learn a lot from them. You're going to learn from the things they do well, the things they don't do well. I think it's just a magical kind of like,
For
when you
how
put
long
all
have
those
you
things
been
together.
for how long have you been doing this, the heroic English?
Heroic English, not so long actually. Say, I want to say maybe 3 months, 4 months now.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's no, okay,
I mean,
okay, that's good.
I started it like a year ago, really, with the first conversation, but then I did not really continue it for some time. Like there was a moment where I was still trying to figure things out, but then I made a comeback, if you will, and now I feel we are in the beginning of something that is gonna be powerful
Of
in the
course,
coming years.
of
It's gonna
course.
become kind of like a something people will talk about and people will want to go to and be a part and be
I'm
an
sure now we
English.
are talking about this. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. Um, so heroic, so how you can handle the business or the heroic English with your personal life. So with your, you have a full-time job that you work with English like translators.
Yes, I have
Mm.
a full-time job, and I'm not yet there, or I'm not yet to the point where I can say, okay, I'm gonna commit to Heroic English full time.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful that the job I'm doing allows me for also like having this energy for Heroic English. I don't I'm not a translator. That was at some point what I wanted to become, but I've since gone a different way. And I am working for a small business in the United States that is kind of like similar to what Heroic English tries to do, which is help people. And there's this element of coaching too. And I work for this company that helps engineers in the United States to um, advance in their career, to reach their next level as engineers, as professionals in that field. And I've learned a lot while doing that for now a year. And yeah, I'm very grateful for what I'm doing, not just in Heroic English, but also the way that I'm also feel contributing to this other company that does that.
So and speak English was part of the way that you get to that company, yes? So
Well, I
you speak
mean,
English there?
yeah, it's 100% in English. There's no one there that doesn't speak English or that speaks Spanish.
Yes, and that's another thing that is important. So when you learn English, you have more opportunities. So the world is bigger for you. So that's great. So and I like that because you are the example of that.
I was, when it's kind of funny because as part of me being in that team, right? I run one of the LinkedIn accounts.
Okay.
And one day I was curious and I went back to, okay, let's just go back in the DMs here in March of last year, 2022, when I first joined. There were like 250 other people that were competing with me. But when I talked to
Wow.
my boss, he said, Max, the moment I saw you and I heard your, or I kind of like watched your video, I knew it was you. Really love the way that you explained yourself, that you expressed your ideas, the things that you said. For me, that was it, and I almost like kind of like made that my decision right there in the moment. And that's kind of like goes to show like the importance of having like a strong presence and English, really like if you can communicate yourself with confidence. It's not
Yeah.
so much, a lot of times people put so much weight on your vocabulary, your grammar. I'm not going to say it's not important. It would be disingenuous of me to say that, but there's an element of the energy behind your words, the way that you kind of like carry yourself. A lot of people would say confidence, but there is an element of energy, right?
Yeah.
Are you bringing your energy, the right energy to the conversation, or right? You could be extremely fluent but not have a good energy, right?
Yeah.
But
It's a combination. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And what about at home? Do you speak English at home? Do you have a kid? Yes.
I do have a kid, and I don't really, not all that much. I mean, yeah, I mean, we my wife
So,
speaks English as well, but we
yes,
don't. Yeah,
you don't practice at home. You don't speak at home.
but
And your kid, how old is he?
he's 4.
Okay, so he's young. But your
Um,
goal is to speak in English with him or no?
of
Teach
course,
him
of
English.
course, I want him to have English as, a tool when he grows up. And
Okay.
it's funny because he's at a point where he sees me sometimes speaking English, and he now kind of like comprehends there is his dad is speaking something else that's not the same language that we speak at home. He understands, and sometimes he kind of like walks around here behind me when I'm kind of like in a conversation
Mhm.
like now, and he would kind of like look at the camera and he would pretend to speak English. Like, remember when you didn't speak English and you pretend like you were just
Yeah.
joking? Yeah, you spoke
I
English
love
and you
that.
just made some weird sounds that thought, okay, it's kind of like he does that sometimes. And he does say hi. He does say my name is sometimes. So
Mhm.
he understands the difference and understands the
That's
concept
great.
of languages.
That's
And
great.
he asks, Daddy, ¿cómo se dice auto en inglés?
Yeah,
What do you
as you
call
say.
auto, car in English, right? So,
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful. Okay, so and the last thing that I would like, it's I want you to give us some resources, or so tell us about someone that you get inspired, like I don't know, authors, or I don't know. So I don't know who you follow.
authors.
Who
Mhm.
are your influencers that impact your life?
Well, my current boss and my former boss, they've been very influential to me. I've got to say, they've both been very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Very special, right? I used to work for Real Life English. Like, I don't know if a lot of people know this channel, Learn English with TV series, which has
Mm-hmm.
over like I think 7 million views now. I used to
Mm-hmm.
edit the videos in that channel. So
Wow.
the CEO of that company, I was the
Wow.
first employee in that company that now has grown to maybe like 20 plus
Wow.
employees. And he was a close friend of mine, Justin, and he taught me a lot, like for like 10 years pretty much. And he was kind of like a mentor to me. Now my new boss, from which I have a wonderful relationship, he's amazing too, and he has and is teaching me a lot of things. And I can say that both these people have been and are very important influences in their, yeah, I've learned a lot about that from them, I would say.
Yeah.
And as for authors, I don't really have like a one, but I've had like moment like phases where I've been very curious about what this person has to say, what this other
Mm-hmm.
author or influencer have to say, right? So I've read like books that I've used to design the heroic English conversation plans and things like that. But there's not like one that stands out, right?
Okay. Okay. I
I'm
got it.
also yeah.
Okay. How is your regular day?
My regular day is strong focus on my work, my day job, if you will.
Yes.
In Heroic English, I'm always doing something regarding Heroic English. Like I'm prepping and I'm like the next conversation, or I am working on my next video on YouTube. And it's an ongoing kind of like effort, like every day, on weekends as well. I also like obviously have my time for family, the time for myself, like going to the gym. I love kickboxing as well. So
Wow.
I haven't been going to the kickboxing gym for a month now, but I want to go back there, and I pay a lot of attention to, working out and,
Yes,
keeping
that's
healthy
important.
that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow, that's good. So, Max, thank you. It was a wonderful conversation because it was very casual. It was like I felt like we were like on a coffee table.
Yeah.
So it was great, and yeah, we learned a lot. And so thank you very much for this interview.
Thank
I
you so
really
much for
appreciate
having
that.
me.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it, Linda. Thank you so much for the time and the conversation. It went awesome, I think.
It was wonderful.